If you say, I'd like an AI coach, what you are often going to end up being given is a chatbot that gives you access to some curated content.
Welcome to the Coaching Revealed podcast series. In this episode of Coaching Revealed, Institute of Coaching Director of Education, Pamela Larde, interviews Sam Isaacson, coach, author, and founder of AIcoach.chat. Sam's work aligns with his goal of providing coaching opportunities to the 99% of the global population who have never received coaching. Sam shares the profound impact that coaching has had on him and explains that with current limitations around access and affordability, how the vast majority of people are unable to benefit from the profession. Utilizing technology, Sam highlights how certain elements of coaching can be brought to broader groups. Rather than taking jobs from coaches, Sam considers this democratization to potentially bring even more clients into the space of human coaches, as exposure increases demand for human touch. Sam and Pamela discuss current issues within the AI coaching space, including emerging misconceptions of what coaching is, with AI coach bots claiming to perform coaching, but instead providing advice-giving services, rather than true non-directive coaching modalities. Another benefit of technological advancements in coaching is increasing the reach that coaches themselves can achieve as they utilize technology to automate their performance and workflow. Sam highlights different tools coaches can incorporate into their practice that can result in increasing bandwidth for coaches to see more clients. This episode closes by highlighting how the technological revolution can be led by coaches and practitioners. Sam encourages coaches to engage with the changing technological field and place themselves in the driver's seat of the profession. Thanks for tuning in to Coaching Revealed. Let's get started.
I want to thank everybody for joining this broadcast today. My name is Dr. Pamela Larde, and I am the Director of Education for the Institute of Coaching. And I'm really excited to have Sam Isaacson with me today to talk about coaching, accessibility, democratization of coaching, AI coaching, the technology. And so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But first, let me introduce Sam. Sam Isaacson is a thought leader on coaching with a popular LinkedIn newsletter and several books to his name, most notably editing the AI and Digital Coaches Handbook, writing 2 books on the impact of technology on coaching, and contributing the chapter on internal coaching to the most recent revision of the Complete Handbook of Coaching. He is the founder of the Coach Tech Collective, a global community of coaches grappling with technology through specialist coach supervision and monthly reports, and works closely with the big coaching professional bodies on development of thinking around technology and ethics. He is leading EMCC's global work on updating credentialing to take technology into account. Sam is co-founder of AIcoach.chat, a tool using AI to make coaching experiences accessible to the 99% who have never had it before, and has experience from big professional services firms and a global digital coaching provider. Sam was chair of the group that introduced England's biggest coaching qualification and was the first person to develop executive coaching into virtual reality. As a coach and consultant, he supports individuals and organizations across the planet with a particular focus on maturing organizational coaching ecosystems and enhancing coaching using technology. Woo! I got to use a little bit of my journalism training there. How are you, Sam?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. The sun is out here, which is a rare treat in the UK. And
we've switched a little gloomy over here in Atlanta. Where in the UK are you?
Yeah, I'm based in London, in leafy West London. It's a great place to raise the family and have easy access into the city as well. So yeah, it's a great place to be.
I love it. Well, I just wanted to start off a little bit about, the work that you're doing. I mean, how did you get to this point where you are really working to help coaching become accessible in a variety of ways? And we'll definitely dive into the AI part of it. But I'm just curious to know about your interest and, dare I say, your passion about creating accessibility for coaching.
Well, my proper career started in the world of technology risk assurance and consultancy advisory. And so that kind of is where I learned how organizations work, is how I learned how careers work. And I was always interested in the whole psychology of leadership and how people work together. But particularly in my role, I ended up specializing in technology change. So I ended up getting involved in a lot of technology projects that were going wrong or that had gone wrong, and going in to investigate them to see what had happened, to make sure that those mistakes didn't happen again in the future. According to the textbook, what I should do in those cases is to look at the processes and see where things have not happened the way that the document told you to do it, and to make sure that the technology was configured right. And almost all of the time, those things were all okay, but the people had gotten in the way. And they weren't communicating right, and they were protecting their own backs instead of working for the good of the whole. Long story short, that sort of led to me getting into the world of coaching as a tool to enable really positive change. And I'm really excited about it. I think it's incredible what coaching can do. But the limitation of coaching has always been that if you have access to a good coach, almost by definition, you are already in an extremely privileged position. Wouldn't it be great if there's a way for coaching to become available to everybody else? And, in your little intro there, you said, making it available to 99% of the world that don't have it, as if a whole 1% of people have access to a coach. It's nothing like that. When you look globally, it's nothing at all like that. I suppose I'm passionate about the idea of it, but then when I have seen the growth of AI in particular, my focus is about all of technology and its impact on coaching, really. But in particular, the growth of AI over the last couple of years, that suddenly opens up opportunities for non-directive conversations to be available to people who would have no other way to get access to them. And so it's an exciting space to be in, and an important one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I would think that in the world of technology, change happens so quickly. And for us, and I say us, meaning the rest of the regular people in the world who are not behind the scenes in technology, part of the change process in technology, we're more of the consumers of it. We just jumped onto the ChatGPT probably maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I know people who are just starting it for the first time. So I'm curious to know how long, at least in your world, has the AI revolution been happening before we even knew that it was here?
Yes, so this is an illustration of how nerdy I am and how deep into this topic I go. So there's a book. I can just see it over my shoulder there, How to Thrive as a Coach in a Digital World. I really like that book. That's the one that I wrote, the first real coaching technology book that I wrote. And in there, I did a little chapter about AI, and I didn't go into a huge amount of detail, but I did reference this thing called GPT 3.5. I wrote that book in 2020. ChatGPT was launched in 2022. So this is 2 years before anybody in the real world had heard of the idea of GPT. And I talked about this thing called GPT 3.5. And basically I said, this is able to generate conversation that looks human. As soon as it goes mainstream, coaching has got to be looking out, because it's going to be able to do coaching really, really well, probably better than a human. And then, 2 years later, ChatGPT comes along, and now we're a couple of years after that, and AI coaching products are available. And there's interest in them, a lot of interest in them. I'm always trying to think, well, what's that thing that I'm thinking about and talking about now that in a few years' time, everyone's going to be talking about? And there are plenty of topics. There's a lot that's been happening in immersive technologies, virtual reality, smart glasses, that sort of thing. Blockchain technology is moving extremely quickly. Quantum computing is growing, brain-computer interfaces. There's a lot of technology activity happening. I think it's important as coaches that we think about that topic and investigate it and try and understand it as best we can, so that when it happens, we're really well positioned to serve our clients well. The best example for this, we all lived through it, if you're old enough. It wasn't that long ago, it feels in my head, but it's several years now. We went through the lockdowns. It was not uncommon in 2019 to go to a coaching conference and hear people confidently say, it is impossible to deliver good quality coaching if you don't meet in person. 2020 happened, and we all have to do it through video, like it or not. And it turns out it's okay, cool. But those coaches that in 2018, 2019 had already started experimenting with video coaching and were already doing it reasonably regularly, for them it was no problem. Oh, we can't meet in person. Here's my Zoom link. That's my heart, really, I suppose, is that as technology continues to change around us, like it or not, our clients are going to move into that direction. That's their only one direction it's going to be going in. And so there's going to come a point where we all just need to be able to interact with AI, let's say, or we all need to be able to meet in the metaverse. And our ability to be able to do that nice and smoothly is going to continue the rapport that we've built up with our clients and not sort of stick this crowbar in our way that sort of trips us up when all they want to do is just have a conversation.
It's interesting because from my perspective, I've been on the other side of I've been on the academic side of coaching, coach training and education side. So from my perspective, when everything shut down, we are doing coach training in person and immediately shifting to what does that look like virtually and having to do that literally in a week's time. We have a training next week. How are we going to pivot? And so it's just interesting to hear the perspective of people who are, practicing coaching and having to make that shift. I had a conversation with a colleague yesterday in the academic world who is extremely skeptical about AI and coaching. So she's in the coach education world, and she is fearful that this is going, and I know you've heard this many times, but this is going to replace the human element of the interaction of coaching. How do you respond to people who have that fear and have that concern?
Well, partly, there's part of me that feels like, what on earth are you scared about? Do you honestly think that a machine is better than you? No one's going to buy something that is not as good. And people do not buy coaching because it's the cheap option. People buy coaching because they want something that is going to really meet their needs and they want to invest in themselves. And this is a really powerful way to do that. It's almost like it's a non-question. However, like I've said before, for more than 99% of the world's population, what is being replaced? There is no coaching happening. If you're a normal person, if you are a manager in a construction firm, you don't have a coach. Nothing's being replaced. So we need a way to give people access to it. And at the moment, there is technology that allows that to happen. So for me, that feels like we've got an ethical obligation to evangelize for that. This is great. And actually, when you've had half a dozen, 10, 50 conversations with an AI coach, you get to a point of thinking, okay, that's good, but now I really do need something a little bit more. And maybe there's an opportunity then for the human coaches to be able to sort of expand the world outside of the traditional pockets that it has already been in. Well, yeah, I'd like to also say that more specifically, when you're thinking about what would an AI replace a human to do, there are certain things that AI can do better than humans, just demonstrably better. If you want to have a tool that is going to listen to every single word that is spoken by somebody and analyze it and come up with a question that takes it all into account, an AI will do that, and it will do it arguably 100% of the time. Whereas what happens when a human listens and then asks a question is our minds are darting all over the place and making connections and sort of guessing. To a certain extent, if you're going to say that really, the best coaching in the world is a coach that never interrupts, follows a coaching model, only ever asks open questions, great, buy an AI, because it will do that every time. And it'll do it really well. And then you can measure it and you can get insights off of the data that's generated through the conversations. There's real value in that. It's not the same as a human coach. Doesn't mean that it's better or worse. I think it makes it different, but it's a new player in the market, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
I think the key word there is different. And a lot of people struggle with different. As you know, in technology, every time something new comes, there's a lot of apprehension. There's a lot of excitement on one hand, and then there's always the school of thought that is more about the fear and the what ifs. And so I think your point about not necessarily better or worse, but different, I think is a really important point. Yesterday, I was in a webinar and in which the speaker referred to an article in Huffington Post. We were talking about left and right brain, and the left brain tends to be a little bit more strategic and practical. The right brain tends to be more creative, emotional. And how with AI taking on more of the left brain tasks, the strategic and so forth, it frees us as human beings to be able to utilize that right brain more. And I, along with the audience, found that incredibly intriguing, and would just love to hear your thoughts on that. If that even resonates with, kind of the work that you do. This is what comes to mind when you were saying that it's not better or worse, but different.
The idea of left and right brain, I mean, to a certain extent, that's effectively true. And also we know it's a little bit more nuanced than that. But, let's accept that it's true for the moment. It certainly isn't true that humans are right-brained and technology is just left-brained, and therefore it's as simple as that. No, humans are the whole brain. And AI is an illusion of what humans do in some situations. So it's possible with a good quality prompt to make AI act with almost an exclusively right brain mentality. But with a well-prompted AI, you can make it act like almost any human that you want to within certain boundaries. I think what's really helpful to think about with AI is that it provides an interesting illusion of a human carrying out certain tasks, which then absolutely enables us to do things that are more fully human. For me, I run my own little business, a little coaching consulting business, like I'm sure a lot of listeners do. And I know that in order to run an effective business, I need to manage my sales pipeline. So I need to be doing outbound leads. I need to be noticing what's there, following up with people. I'm rubbish at that. I don't really enjoy it. I'm not disciplined enough. I have used my little automation platform, and I have set up a little assistant where I can have a conversation with somebody and I send a WhatsApp message to say, I just had a chat with Pam. I think she's going to buy a workshop off me, and I can send that as a message. And then this little helpful AI is going to understand, in inverted commas, what that means and populate my little spreadsheet with a next action and a reminder date, and then send me an email to say, have you followed up with Pam because you said you were going to? I think it's really helpful doing that sort of thing so that I can be freed up to do stuff I enjoy more and I'm better at.
Right. So I see what you mean by it's an oversimplification, because there's so many dynamics that go along with what AI can do, what it frees us to do. It's not just that simple. It's very complex. So what does it look like? What does an AI coach interaction with somebody maybe, working in an industry where they might not have access to AI, what might that interaction look like? How does it begin and how does it progress?
Ready to advance your coaching practice? Join the Institute of Coaching and tap into the world's leading resource for coaching science and professional development. With over 4,000 members across 130 countries, the IOC offers invaluable networking opportunities with an elite global coaching community and innovative learning to broaden your knowledge and keep you at the forefront of coaching best practices. Engage in cutting-edge learning events with world-renowned coaching scholars, from webinars and seminars to discussion groups, research projects, and more. Try any membership free for 30 days. Use promo code IOC Podcast and visit instituteofcoaching.org/join to get started.
Well, the term AI coaching, disappointingly, I think, has started to take on the meaning that coaching has had in a lot of people's minds that doesn't line up with the profession's understanding of coaching. So if you say, I'd like an AI coach, what you are often going to end up being given is a chatbot that gives you access to some curated content. So I go and have a conversation with my AI coach and say, I'm delivering a presentation next week. And the AI coach will respond to say, cool, come up with a plan, but don't stick to the script too closely. Come up with some slides, but make sure that it's you that's talking. So it'll come up with some little bits of tips and help. It's not unhelpful, but it strays away from what coaching is in my mind. Whereas with AIcoach.chat, what we've been developing there is something that is really at its heart non-directive. It might not be exclusively non-directive, but 90% of the time it's going to be non-directive is a sort of conversation. And the way that people interact with it in many ways is very similar to a human. You typically would like people to schedule sessions with it, to have an open-ended conversation where you set a goal and you go through a process of being asked good open questions to help increase your awareness, and then you commit to an action. And then in future sessions, it will ask you, have you done the things that you said that you were going to do? It is different from a human coach because, for a start, it is accessible 24 hours a day, and humans, generally speaking, are not. Even if they say that they are, they're going to be asleep at some points. And so that's an advantage that comes from it. It's only really text-based. You can interact with it through speech, but it works best through text because what then happens in the interaction is the AI asks you a question and you think, you write your response and you send it. And that's not what happens in a live conversation with a human. You go off the tangent all the time, where the richness of the human interaction comes. So the AI is great at always responding in a non-directive way, taking you through to really sort of targeted, fixed to the goal, let's set an action, hold you accountable and ask you next time, remember what we talked about. Whereas with humans, it feels to me like it's a lot more fluid. There's a lot more that actually a coach doesn't really know cognitively, like you feel where you're going. There's intuition and certainly there's presence, and AI isn't present in the same way or at all, actually. So yes, it's different, but it does give you the ability with the AI to roll it out to a huge number of people at the same time. It's unlimited effectively. But if you give that to 10,000 people and they all have a coaching conversation, then you can aggregate up the data without breaking confidentiality to be able to say, in your workforce, you might want to know that when they are asked, what would you want to talk about today? 63% of people say, my poor line manager.
That's really interesting. And are there demonstrations that are out there and available for people to see how this goes?
Oh, there's probably videos of me sharing it on a screen. But if you go to AIcoach.chat, there's a book a demo button.
Oh, so you'd have to book the demo. Gotcha. Okay.
Or you can just go onto the website. You can create an account for free. It's a limited version that you get because it's limited to the interaction that a coaching client would have. As a user, you can experience a conversation, but it's not the same as if you were to deploy it in an organization because it's fully customized. So it's going to understand. And here you go, again, something different. It'll understand the organizational objectives. It will understand your cultural values and speak the right sort of language. It might know what you do as a job and the leadership development program you're currently on. Even when coaches are briefed working in an organization, there's still a level you don't really know, and you certainly can't control that that's something they're going to bring into the conversation. It's a slightly different experience, but yeah, go onto the website and have a play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I asked that question because I'm wondering who the target audience is. It sounds like it's people within organizations, but does it go beyond that? I'm thinking about that from the standpoint of accessibility, access to technology and that kind of thing. Who are the people that tend to utilize this?
So we are, as a business, we have not got external funding. That's a decision that we've made. We want to be purpose-led and not have some investors peeking over our shoulders to see what the numbers look like. And our heart is to make it available for free to as many people as would like to use it. And so it's freely available on the website. So in order to make that work commercially, we're looking for organizations to invest in a customized version that would work for their people. And then individuals benefit from being able to use it, and the organization benefits from the ability for those conversations to be curated.
That's really exciting. I mean, it's really exciting. When I come from a well-being standpoint. So my research is around joy, well-being, leadership in organizations is the academic department I'm a part of. So I try to, integrate that into the work of leadership in organizations. So when I think about what some organizations are doing to impact the well-being of their team members, of their employees, I've seen some initiatives that are around having access to coaching, having access to counseling and therapy via an app. And how, common is it now for organizations to seek this out, to find ways to create accessible support, for their team members? Is that a hard sell, or are people looking for it?
It's increasing the level of appetite, level of outbound from organizations, interest to actively go and look for an AI coach. The problem, like I sort of alluded to before, is that the term AI coach does not mean a non-directive AI-powered conversation partner. It tends to mean, we'd like to give people access to an AI chatbot so they can access data quickly. If you go out looking for an AI coach, you will find a bunch of products that have appeared over the last few years, and the majority of those don't deliver what I think coaching is by definition. People don't go out explicitly looking for AI non-directive coaching conversations because they don't really know what they're looking for. They just want to see what does the market look like? As I say, I think interest is absolutely growing in it, and there are all sorts of pushes to increase the amount of coaching that we use in the organization, increase the amount of AI that is being used in the organization. And certainly there are more RFPs with the term AI coaching in them now than there were a year ago or 2 years ago.
So I want to shift a little bit to values, ethics, and there's always a national conversation going on with regards to ethics around coaching. I'm curious to know about your personal values and how your values as a human being are connected to this work. I mean, I know you've spoken about how you want to create accessibility. Are there other aspects of your values that are tied into this initiative?
My personal values, there are a few of them, I suppose, but the way that they come out in AI is particularly around, I really value transparency, and I really value kindness. Let's use that as a word. And I think that the reason why I really got excited about coaching and wanted to get into it is that I could see that when I have a conversation, a non-directive coaching conversation with a senior person, we chat for an hour and they come in with a challenge that they're trying to wrestle with, and then they leave and they've made an informed, mature choice that not 100% of the time, but that the conclusion that they end up drawing is never more unkind than where they started. So sometimes it's neither kinder nor unkinder, but every time, if it's making a difference, it's always kinder. People want to be kind. They want to leave a legacy of kindness. They're driven by the desire to be kind, even if they don't realize it. They're thinking about a restructure. The reason that's a challenge for them is because they feel like there's a level of unkindness in there, and they want to sort of unpick that. And then they end up deciding, okay, I could make some sacrifice in here in order to be kinder. That's what happens. And so that gets me very excited, because I think it has a ripple effect. Therefore, if you can do that through AI to 1,000 people instead of one, how incredible is that as a way to achieve that sort of goal? So that's that bit. The transparency piece, I think, is really important, because there's a lot that happens in technology that feels quite opaque. You just interact with this machine and some stuff happens, and then we pay some money, and it's not really clear. And so I think it is important to be able to see what's happening with that sort of data. And I think that a lot of the risks and ethical issues that some coaches raise as if they are challenges that mean that nobody should ever interact with AI tend to be overblown and misinformed. Well, I said this earlier, I think we've got an ethical obligation to embrace and adopt it if it's the only way, and it currently, to my mind, is, to get non-directive, good quality conversations into the hands of everybody in the world.
I really appreciate that. And the kindness foundational, approach is just, I haven't heard it said like that before, but I really appreciate that. So I know that your goal as an organization, as you said, is to make coaching as available as possible, to as many people as possible. And I'm curious to know the goals associated with that. How is that playing out, with the company, with AI Coach? Do you see it unfolding the way that you envisioned, or are you having to pivot and address issues that you didn't anticipate? How is that playing out?
Well, the one thing that we are having to constantly wrestle with, I keep coming back to it, is the fact that this term AI coach is used quite differently in different pockets of the world. The fact that I can start a conversation, I have no idea where it's going to go. I don't even know what the first thing is you're going to say, but I do know that if I just show enough curiosity and ask good, challenging questions, in 45 minutes, we're going to have achieved something really exciting together. That lights me up. And so that's, I'm really excited about that. And then when a big organization thinks, I'd love to give coaching to all of my people, and AI coaching is the only way to do that, I'll go and buy an AI coach. And then what they end up buying is a chatbot that will give them rapid advice. That does not excite me at all. But the problem is that when you are an individual user who's being given access to an AI coach, what they think that they want is rapid advice. And so when you're sort of locked in a room with a human coach and you're told, here you go, have some coaching with this person, and you don't want to, well, now we're locked in a room for an hour, and I, as the coach, am not going to let you out until we've wrestled with this enough for you to discover that this is actually what you needed. But I'm still not going to tell you what to do. That's a fun and important game to play. There's an important part of educating, and onboarding, which has always been an important part of any sort of coaching arrangement, but it's almost been there implicitly because you're just there. You have to have the conversation somehow, and you're not getting out of here. With an AI, you can just disappear. So that's an exciting learning opportunity for the world to have, in terms of the value of a non-directive conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, especially in an era where we want the information quick. We want to, I know we used to call it the microwave era. We just want it quick. So I think, that's an important developmental part of the process, just being introduced to the relationship that, you'll be having with this coaching, experience. And so I think that's exciting as well. Now, I see that you recently hosted the Digital AI Coaching Conference at the beginning of February. Curious to know two things. What were the key takeaways from that conference? But also, how did you feel the audience received this conference and this information in 2025?
Well, I think I've been talking about this sort of topic. It's not just been AI. I've been talking about all sorts of technology for a long time. I can feel, one conference to the next. If I go to an annual conference each year, I can see more people in the audience are experimenting with this sort of technology. More people are becoming more open-minded about it. And so a couple of years ago, to suggest that it is possible to use AI to deliver coaching that is of any reasonable quality at all would have been heresy to the majority of the people who would attend. But this was a really well-attended 2 full days of all sorts of different sort of content. But it was really intense, and it was 2 full days with it, and it was hundreds and hundreds of people who signed up. They really wanted to be part of that conversation. There were a couple of voices that were a little more cynical rather than skeptical. You can't possibly be suggesting that AI can do this. But the vast majority of people at least were open-minded and curious as to, okay, what is happening here? I'd like to learn more, whereas a couple of years before, wasn't really detecting that in the same way. I think that it was very interesting to see a few different sorts of backgrounds of people there, because it wasn't just AI, it was around digital platforms more broadly. And so, we heard from some of the biggest players in terms of digital coaching providers and, coaching technologies that are available to coaches, as well as, of course, in the AI space. And we heard from sort of academics and business people and coaches that are thinking about it, researchers. We had Marshall Goldsmith there talking about his Marshall bot, which is not an AI coach, but is a thing. It certainly uses AI. And so, really great to be part of that conversation and see that people are really hungry to understand what the impact of technology is having and is going, is likely to have on the coaching profession. And I think particularly a question that I think most people were coming with was, well, I am a coach. What on earth am I going to do? I hear all these stories about AI coaches, being bought and sold and, moving into organizations. Okay, so it's happening. What do I do? How do I compete against that? Certainly can't do it on price or scale. How can I even use AI in my practice to increase my scale or reduce my price? From the whole democratization perspective, perhaps we can do something like automate certain aspects of a coaching relationship so that I can take on more clients, and not to charge more, but just to be able to serve more people.
That's interesting. So I caught in there that you were saying that Marshall Goldsmith's, the bot that he has, and I also got to witness Marty Seligman. He demonstrated his bot before an IOC audience. So you were saying that's not AI?
Oh no, it is AI.
Okay, I just thought it was a trick question. I was like, wait a minute. I thought it was okay. And the reason, because when you say digital coaching, and I appreciate you for the reminder of this, that it's not just AI. Digital coaching can mean a lot of different things. And one of the things that I read is that you did a virtual reality coaching experience. What was that like? And tell us, just how is that different?
There is a lot of growth and experimentation in the world of immersive technologies, which, 20 or 30 years ago would have looked like a huge virtual reality headset that you put on your head and, is the size of a dustbin.
That's what I was envisioning today.
I thought that I had one here that I could show you on the screen, which wouldn't be very helpful for listeners anyway. But you can get a virtual reality headset that is not massive. It's about the size of a large smartphone, but you sort of strap it around your eyes, then you're in virtual reality, completely immersed. There are smart glasses being worked on that honestly are not much bigger than just a regular pair of prescription glasses. With those, you are able to meet people remotely and sort of conjure up an image of them that you see as if they are appearing in front of you in 3 dimensions. And then you can have a conversation with this holographic avatar. I haven't experienced that bit, but I have experienced meeting people in virtual reality remotely. It feels, when you describe it, then it feels as if what you're saying is add more and more and more technology into the space. So we've got in-person coaching, that's like pure coaching. And then you've got phone coaching, which you lose some of the humanness, but you're using a bit of technology. Then you've got video. Okay, well, that's a bit more technology, so you get a bit more. With VR, this is even further away. You don't even have a video. It's like when you put on the headset, your entire body is telling you that this thing is real. So I can hear you. I can see you. In some cases, I can even reach out and touch you. We can shake hands and feel feel your hand being shaken. You've got a controller and it's got haptic feedback. So as I reach out and shake your hand, I can feel the grip. So there's something that is deeply embodied in the experience, which then changes our physiology as we're delivering coaching. So rather than staring into a tiny little 2D rectangle and feeling awkward about looking away from the camera, suddenly I'm sitting back in my chair and I can physically see you in front of me. I can explore the space with you, and then we can create a constellation on the floor with objects that we just pull out of a menu somewhere and they just appear, and we can move them around by literally reaching out and grabbing them and resizing them by stretching them, and we can conjure up a picture of your children because you've mentioned them and stick that in as an important part. That is suddenly an immersive experience of coaching that for me is absolutely better than video coaching. It is, I'm not going to claim for one moment that it is better than in-person coaching. But there are things you can do in there you can't do in person. And the technology is coming that is reasonably likely that within the next few years that smart glasses would become more attractive than having a smartphone. You don't need to carry it around in your pocket all the time. So it's going to be the sort of technology that, just like video conferencing exists in our pocket all the time, that meeting remotely through immersive technologies would be on our person all the time. Now, that is quite a likely outcome in the next few years. So that's my GPT 3.5 talking a couple of years into the future. That's my now, get yourself ready. It's coming.
That is very interesting. Just things that you can do with a client with that, type of technology. I find that intriguing. And another thing that comes to mind with regards to education and coach education and training. What do coach training organizations and educational institutions need to keep in mind when it comes to training, certifying and preparing coaches for the world as it pertains to digital coaching and technology?
I think the good news is probably, if you're a coach educator, that coaching skills fundamentally are effectively the same as they have always been. The way that you coach somebody on a video is the same as the way that you coach them in person. And also, you do need to know how to use Zoom or Teams or whatever in order to be able to coach effectively. If you don't know that you can share your screen, you're missing out on an opportunity to share some content with your client, or to just scribble on a whiteboard together or something, which could make that session better. I think that the foundational skills are the same, and there are real opportunities in technology that we should be preparing ourselves to take advantage of for the benefit of our clients and for the wider systems, and also to sort of protect ourselves from just looking silly and irrelevant and just not understanding the risks that we're facing. So I suppose particularly with that in mind, there are opportunities that lie in automations and AI. I've actually tomorrow, this is exciting for me, this time tomorrow I will be launching the Coach Tech Academy, where I'll be training coaches in how to set up AI assistants.
Sign me up.
10-week program, and my hope behind it is by the end of 10 weeks, you understand enough to effectively, this is the power of AI, to effectively become a computer programmer, to program your own entirely new machines. You don't need to program for it. You kind of need to know where the buttons lie for it and do some experiments, which is what we're going to be doing together.
See, the audience can't see my reaction, but my mouth is just like wide open, like, what?
There's this phrase that sort of bounces around on LinkedIn. I'm not sure it's that helpful, actually, but this idea that you're not going to be replaced by an AI, you're going to be replaced by a human who's using AI.
That's it right there. I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's one of these things, though, it's comforting and it's a little bit more difficult than that. I think if you're a good coach, you're going to remain a good coach. People want to work with a good coach. But if you're just interacting with people in the internet, how are they going to come across you? How are you going to be really impactful? Do you know what? If you understand how AI works, that's going to make you a lot more effective, because then if you're basically creating a team of colleagues for yourself, and that's really powerful.
What I love about this, though, is when you're talking about the democratization of coaching, it's not just for the people who are receiving the coaching. This is also for people who want to deliver the coaching and want to be a part of this AI delivery and creation of technology and coaching. So I see a lot of value from both sides of the camp, for coaches, for coachees alike.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the thing that AI gives us is the ability to create whatever we sort of hold in our imagination, which is a very human thing. And so there are certainly ways that you could create a little AI assistant that would be a support for your coaching clients in between coaching sessions. And it would do that in quite a mature way, because you could prompt that, customize it to act exactly as you would act as a coach, that it recognizes what's important to you, doesn't act in a way that it ought not to, according to your personal values. So it's unique to you. It's only your clients can get access to that. And it will learn about them over time. So every time they interact with it, it will remember, well, last time we interacted, this was what happened to you. In your last session with Sam, you talked about this. It brings something new and different, which hasn't existed before in coaching. And so, we're able to sort of redesign what that looks like for us. And I think that we can do that. My concern for the coaching profession is that AI is showing so much promise that technologists and venture capitalists are going to be the loudest voices to shape the future of the profession. I think if we're coaches, we should be getting ourselves informed and getting our hands dirty.
Gosh, that's such a good point. And I'm going to let us end on that, because I think it's such an important point that right now we as coaches have the opportunity to take the lead in this initiative. And I think we absolutely should. I'm grateful to see what you're doing in this industry. And we haven't even gotten into the ways in which technology actually allows us to be more human. We're so afraid that it's going to take away our humanity, but I think when done well, it allows us to dive more deeply into our humanity. Do you have any final words, anything that you'd like to sort of impart upon us or make sure that we understand before we close out here?
I feel like I've said a whole bunch of random stuff, and hopefully some of it was helpful. So, please, I'm a friendly person. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and I would love to get to know people. Yeah, and let's build a future together.
I love it. I don't know if we're connected, but we are going to be after this conversation. It was really great talking to you, Sam. I appreciate your time today.
Cool. It's great to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Coaching Revealed, brought to you by the Institute of Coaching. You can learn more about the Institute on our website at instituteofcoaching.org. You can stay up to date with new episodes of our podcast by liking and following Coaching Revealed. You can also find us on social media on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X with the handle Institute of Coaching. We also love hearing from our guests, so please reach out to us with thoughts you have on this episode and any questions you have about coaching. Until next time, this is Emily Tarani with Coaching Revealed.